Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about the actually upcoming INEOS announcement. We'll talk about the changes, talk about some of the leaks, Ten Hag, the media, all of that. I want to talk about Rafael Varane a little bit and a few more things, so let's get right into it. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to talk about the INEOS deal because obviously it's been soon, supposed to be this time, supposed to be that time for some time now, and here's the thing about this deal. First of all, this happens often with transfers. It happens often with practically anything related to Manchester United, even the manager process when they were picking, Ten Hag and interviewing people and Pochettino and all of that a long time ago, or what feels like a long time ago now, is there's so much coverage and so many people reporting that a lot of things feel as though they're stalled when they're just gradually progressing towards the finish. And that, of course, also has to do with the Glazers and how they run things and the speed in which things occur and the speed in which things go back and forth, which will hopefully be something changing. But on the INEOS front, last week, I believe I mentioned, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe had gone out of town on holiday. He's set to return next week. And I said that it would probably take another couple of weeks, I think. And at the start of this week, what I was told now is that there was practically nothing, if anything, like a very minor matter to be resolved in order for this deal to get done now, and that they are still aiming, as of today, for early next week for this to be announced. I have also been told very, very reliably that at this point in time, all parties, including Manchester United as a club itself, are preparing the announcements and what is going to be said in conjunction with this deal. And that is notable because it is no longer a matter of people being in the dark as they have been at Manchester United throughout the majority of this process, outside of what Richard Arnold has been passing along, which I will talk about a little bit more later on. They are now notified on where things are at, notified on preparing for announcement to essentially say, hey, we've got it ready from INEOS side on exactly what to say. We've got it ready from, the club itself to make its announcement, similar to how they had to make an official communication about things like Richard Arnold, things like the actual process itself of engaging in the strategic alternatives. And when you're preparing those kind of statements, you are generally a matter of days away from announcement. There is no exact specific date being set, simply because you can't. This is a deal where the moment it is done, they will push the button and say, put it out there. You can't have it be done and say, yeah, we're going to do it on this date and then that's it, and we know everybody, and we're going to tell everybody ahead of time and be ready for that. That's not really how this is going to work. With a lot of takeovers, a lot of things like that, it takes a lot of time. With a lot of business sales, it takes a lot of time. There's obviously all the regulations and challenges and things to go through. They wanted everything to be prepared, so they have everything to give to UEFA in terms of how they're structuring the deal to prevent potential issues with Nice ownership. Owners and directors test, all of that, so that there's just no potential roadblocks of any kind down the road. So you can think of it a matter of they've done all the preparation, so there's nothing that could be problematic once the deal is announced moving forward afterwards that could stall or hold things up beyond the regular amounts of time. And none of that is supposed to be a concern. But yes, as of this week, as of a few days ago, or I believe yesterday, or Monday rather, it is to the point now where these announcements and things are being prepared for this deal. And that is a very good sign. in terms of it meeting that target for next week. And that is where everybody is working towards this happening as soon now as possible. So I will keep you in the loop on that. When INEOS get in there, the first thing, again, that they're expecting to do and to focus on is the changes at the top. There's been some talk about how they're going to get the 2 board seats, but neither of them will be Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Dave Brailsford. Now, I don't know 100% on that, if that's like a sure thing. You know, but if you just logically to think about it, Blanc, if he's the CEO, will likely be one of those board seats like Richard Arnold was. And if he were to depart, it would be a seat that would likely be given to another INEOS appointment. But Blanc will be one of those seats most likely as the CEO. And then I could imagine it being someone else who's not involved in the running of Nice, so that you have that kind of separation between the 2 clubs. That I don't know, but I suspect that would be the reason why that is the case, because they've known about this. They've been in communication with UEFA. They're well aware of this being they already own a club. It's not something that they're wouldn't be in communication with the right people about. That might be why. Beyond Blanc, there are expected to be significantly more changes. We've talked before, of course, about the director of football. I've not heard any changes on that expectation. And one of the things I mentioned, let me find my tweet on this because I want to put this right. One of the things that I've mentioned in the past is that not long ago, is that, let me see here. Because I was pretty irritated with the whole situation after the Newcastle game. And as I was saying on the podcast earlier this week with Phil, when I look at how things are going, if you have a manager who's not succeeding and you have players who are not succeeding, there has to be somebody taking charge of that above them. And one of the things with Ten Hag and one of the perspectives with Ten Hag that people have to understand is that if you are going to insist upon being responsible for transfers and you are going to insist upon complete control of your dressing room, then you are at fault for whatever goes on in there. You are responsible for it. You are responsible for players going sour, players not putting in effort, all that, if you are the guy who is running the show. Because you are. And one of the things that INEOS will be coming in to do, and it's why you don't set things up this way in modern football, is to remove responsibilities from people where there are more sectioned responsibilities, that there are, much more delineated jobs in the club, and that includes the manager. And as I said on Twitter, the only thing I really want to say on Ten Hag is that he's going to have to accept the role that is presented in order to have a future at the club under INEOS control, which is likely to be diminished and have more direction from people above him. And I think it would be smarter of him to accept that than to have any issue with that, because otherwise you're on the hook. If you're fighting and you disagree with diminishing control over certain aspects, then you have no defense for when these things are not going wrong, and they are going wrong right now. But there's nobody else taking responsibility for these things at the moment, in my opinion. And that's the thing when INEOS come in. I don't know how that's going to go, to be quite honest. The indications I have are questionable. And so, that is on Ten Hag once INEOS get in there to have those discussions and to figure out if he's willing to accept that. And I think he should. I think he's going to have to one way or another, but he should. And any manager at United in moving forward to a modern setup should. Now, I know that people have said, why wouldn't he? Um, I know that people have said, why wouldn't he? Worked under a modern structure at Ajax and all of that. It's a little more complex than that, to be honest. People are funny. Ten Hag asked for more power at Manchester United. It's been mentioned in the articles around during his interviews and things that he wanted more control over transfers than any of the prior managers have, and he has it. Even at Ajax, if you look way back in stories, I have some people from there who are telling me about this. He had asked for a lot more power initially before getting into that job. And it's very hard to get people to accept diminished influence once they're already in a job because it feels like a demotion. And it is. But sometimes that's for the better. And so we'll see how that goes. But honestly, nothing would surprise me on that front. And that is going to be a key matter. And I can only advise to accept those changes and accept what is being offered because it is for the best of the club, it's for the best of the team, it's for the best of everybody. And it is the right way to run things. Now, moving on to the section with regards to leaks and some of what went on. Obviously, earlier in the week, there were stories about, players falling out with Ten Hag, players concerned, player backing, all of that. There were stories from quite a few people: Dawson, Luckhurst, Cave, Disco at Mirror. Cave's in particular was talking about how he's lost half the dressing room and this and that. I have a couple of perspectives on this, and then those 4 journalists end up being banned from the press conferences by essentially by Erik ten Hag. My personal perspective on this is I don't think it's the right call to ban journalists because I don't think it actually does anything. I don't think that I understand. It's not. I don't have a lot of love lost for a couple. I quite like Rob Dawson. I've spoken with him many times. So I consider him to be someone who I don't think there's much wrong with his article in the first place. But how do I put this sort of delicately? I don't think that it's very hard because there's a lot of things I don't agree with that have been said by media and people like that as well. I don't tend to buy into losing the dressing room types of things and things like that. I try to be specific when I mention concerns and problems and things like that. I try to mention specificity, and a lot of times there's very general statements made that I don't agree with because very often it leads to people targeting the wrong players in media. Almost always it's the British players that are being targeted. But as far as I understand it, British players are some of the few who are very motivated still, that have obviously an inherent love, desire, and all of that for the club itself. And so are less likely to be like that. And you look at that, Harry Maguire wins Player of the Month for November today. Had great performances in the league, has reverted. We'll talk about Varane in a moment. There's your British player who has been most maligned. Anyway, because of the general statements of things, it tends to target the wrong people. And it's the issue here is that there is truth, and there's a lot of things. The Manchester Evening News put out a big long statement, and a lot of it was to me, it was kind of crazy because they've done a lot of, in my opinion, they've done a lot of shit stirring over the years when I look at it. But the last line from the editor, not from Luckhurst, but from the editor, was that they should look closer to home for the source of these leaks, and that is absolutely correct. The problem that you kind of have, the only thing I would disagree with here is I know for a pretty well fact that it's kind of like the calls are coming from inside the house type of situation here. It's very often not players. There's other people leaking things against Erik ten Hag and against the players and causing trouble. And I think it's better to focus on that and why that's happening and what is happening. Um, I've mentioned before the points about the running, the fitness, the training, things like that. It's not a new thing. I do think the media often sit on things and save things up until it has the most impact, and that part I disagree with. I try to put things out as they are. These concerns over the training and regimen and all that are not new. They're things that have been issues. We've discussed that ad nauseum at this point in time. But yeah, it's a complex situation. There are issues. There are issues, and United are often pretending that there aren't, unfortunately, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it either. Is to I've said before, one of the biggest complaints I have, and one of the biggest things I would suggest changing at United, is I think they should go for a lot more ruthless honesty at Manchester United. I think ruthless honesty, brave honesty, would do a lot more in talking with fans. You know, why not say, yeah, a bunch of players are unhappy and we've got to sort that out, but they still have to give 100%. It's kind of like, I don't know. There's just something about it. Even the Sancho situation blowing up in the way that it is, why not just have like ruthless honesty with everybody? I just think that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like if a lot more of the downfalls, a lot more of the pitfalls, a lot more of the negatives were acknowledged and talked about instead of being denied, instead of being ignored, instead of being pushed to the side, I think you'd actually end up with a much better environment, because it wouldn't be about looking good. It's whether or not you're getting results. And you have to acknowledge negatives in order to fix them. And I don't know if when some feedback is received about training or this and that, it's instantly rejected instead of thinking because it's criticism, because it's a negative, and you got to push the negatives away instead of just saying, maybe there's something in that we could look at and acknowledge and see if we can improve. I'm just saying that as perspective on the club as a whole is something I hope to see change. Anybody knows in life that it's important to accept responsibility for the things that you do wrong if you intend to see improvement. And until you can accept responsibility for those things, then you're never going to improve because you have to acknowledge them in order to change. Very philosophical. But anyway, that's just kind of overall my perspective on this and why I kind of disagree with it, even though I understand it, is if they're not true, then they shouldn't affect you. And if they are true, don't try to hide them. Acknowledge them and move on and try to fix it. And that leads me to Rafael Varane, because as I understand on this situation, choose my words carefully here, but he's the situation between him and manager is not great. I don't really care. I'm not saying that it's just not great. It isn't. He has some issue that I'm not sure if he'll be in the team today, an injury issue or something like that. I'm not sure that he'll be in the team today. It's unknown. I don't think it's a major thing, but it's unknown if he will make the team today after getting a late kind of knock yesterday and needing some treatment apparently. So I'm not sure. But the situation, as I understand it, is that it's not great with the manager, and he is likely to leave and not want to play for the manager next season. So, I think that I understand why somebody doesn't want to necessarily talk about that, but the situation isn't good. No matter what is said, it isn't good. It hasn't been good. There's more to it than just, the reasons for it from Ten Hag's side certainly could be tactical, but from the player's perspective, it's not a good relationship and situation. And I mention that because, I don't know, if he's I don't know how much. I wouldn't expect to see him playing much this year unless it's absolutely, emergency type situation. And especially if players come back healthy over the next bit, Martinez, Evans, etc. I just wouldn't expect him to see him contribute or play much unless something changes significantly under Ten Hag. So, it's the type of thing that I don't know. I don't know how you deal with that, but I feel as though somehow these types of things have to be acknowledged and said, yeah, in this moment, it's not great. Rafael Varane wants to play. He's not playing. Um, we're unhappy with that situation. You know, I guess if there's no way back, then just sell him. You know what I mean? Like, if there's no way back and you know he's unhappy, just sell him instead of pretending that things are okay. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Just my perspective on things as a whole, because I feel like letting things kind of sit and bubble under the surface, you know, isn't the right way to go about all of it. And I think that things being aired out more would be potentially better. But yeah, there's that. And then, so moving into Chelsea tonight, what does that mean for the game this evening? Well, the team, in terms of what's available, you have hardly any changes available. You have basically Sofian Amrabat. I would put Shaw back on the left instead of playing him at center back. I would put Amrabat in for Scott McTominay. I would, and then you have Antony available. I would obviously start Rasmus Højlund again. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know a lot of people are yelling for Rashford to be dropped. Fair enough. You know, one of the things that it was interesting that that Ten Hag said yesterday in his press conference was that he doesn't want to do man-to-man marking. And I'm not like a tactical genius, but they 100% were man-to-man marking. And the thing I don't totally understand, like, here's the thing, I get that. Because, you know, you take those moments where Rashford is chasing Livramento. If you're not man-to-man, then he's supposed to be able to pass him off to a midfielder or a fullback, so that your forwards aren't always tracking back into their own thirds, and you can keep them higher up the pitch. Now, Marcus Rashford did more tracking back than Alejandro Garnacho, but yes, Marcus Rashford is the senior player, so I can understand why you'd want him dropped, but personally, I'd go the other way and let Marcus Rashford play on the left. But if you're not intending to play man-to-man, then you have to drop Scott McTominay, because Scott McTominay has provided zero support every single game. Why was Rashford having to track back? Why was there no one to pass him off to? Because Scott McTominay was getting dragged all over the pitch by Joelinton. So if it's not man-to-man, then why is he doing that? And Wan-Bissaka is being dragged all over the pitch by the other winger, and the same thing's happening on the other side. You know, Trippier gets him free because Garnacho isn't tracking him, but there's no one to pass him off to because Dallow's getting dragged away. Bruno's getting dragged away. Kobbie Mainoo, you know, it doesn't totally add up, so there's something not clicking. And so it's either not true or the players are not understanding what to do. And I'm talking most of them. So I get it. There's differences in pressing and rest defense and all of that, but they're clearly not understanding that, especially in transition. When you go high and lose the ball right away off of a goal kick, like what's happening versus Newcastle, what is the defense that's being played at that point in time? Are you still in a man-to-man, or are you sitting back in a rest defense where the fullback's winger's gonna pass them off the fullback, etc.? I don't know. I'm no genius from a tactical front, but I do know that whatever has been being done and happening isn't working. And I also know that despite all the talk of tracking back and all of that, you shouldn't have Marcus Rashford spending his entire game chasing the opposing fullback. You shouldn't. That doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't have Alejandro Garnacho having to chase Trippier around the entire pitch. You just shouldn't. You're not going to control the game that way. You're letting your opponent dictate what you're going to do. So something, you know, should be different against Chelsea, because they have good fullbacks too. And they're going to have attacking fullbacks. This is something Pochettino is known for, is the fullbacks and having really strong fullbacks. So, you know, you want to attack them and get behind those fullbacks, not the other way around. So we'll see. We'll see tonight. I don't know. I do hope to see changes in the midfield, and I do hope to see Luke Shaw back at left back as the major changes. I think those are more meaningful than anything else. Fixing that and fixing the midfield, I think, is bigger than anything else otherwise. So that's what I have for today. I expect that I will have more information in the coming days, and I expect that potentially by the end of the week we might get some more updates with regards to INEOS as things stay on schedule. And let's see, there's definitely some big games and big implications coming up. So thank you for watching today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I will see you in the next one.